Hello, everyone. I am one of your hosts, McKenna. But John, I kicked out this week, and no, you are not seeing double. I have my good friend and fellow patron, Austin Garso, here to recap the episode with me. Austin, how are you liking the season?
It's really good. Honestly, this is definitely my favorite season so far, into the 40s for sure. Yeah, I'm loving the 90 minutes specifically. That is,
Yeah, I think everyone is.
Yeah, absolutely made Survivor for me recently. So,
all right, well, it's time to take a dip into the past, and we start off with Julie struggling with lying to people and, being that mother figure, and people coming to her with, we trust you, we want to be with you, and she's just like, yeah, we're good, and then blindsiding them, and they're on the jury bench. So that leads us to other matronly females who cry. And that would be Dawn and Cara Moen mainly. She doesn't cry as much in South Pacific. We mainly, when we see Dawn crying, we see Cara Moen. And then Lisa Welchel in Philippines.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation for people in that role, because you're just put in this almost a pigeonholed into this situation where you're basically told that you need to be motherly, whether or not that's the role or the game that you want to play. You're just kind of put in that position, and then rightfully so, a lot of the times they have difficulty with voting people off and hurting people's feelings, especially if they are mothers and they have children of their own. They probably think about how they would feel if they were doing that to their children, or they don't want their kids to get hurt or feel upset.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then we lead into this Bruce knowledge is power lie that he concocts, and this is only a possible lie that, someone left with my idol because of this new era, and I think exclusively because 43, with that whole idol swap, and Dwight leaving with Janine's idol, but actually it's in Jesse's pocket, maddening. So Bruce tells this kind of lie to Katurah to see if it's believable before he approaches the group with it.
Yeah. Interesting decision. My whole thought process is why would anybody believe this?
Yeah.
Everybody knew that Kelly was not vibing with Bruce, and if Kelly truly did end up with Bruce's idol, there's no reason everybody at camp wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
She would have been the first person to be like, Bruce gave me his idol, let's get him out of here. So I just I can't believe that,
either that or the aftermath of that Kelly blindside. We would have come back to camp and been like, oh my God, Kelly just left with my idol. That's when you see this lie come about. And, there wasn't that explosive at the end coming back to camp that we would see with a blindside and, an idol leaving the game. We quickly kind of transition into the reward challenge. And it was kind of basic. So, the hitching post to the net crawl. But then we have the table maze that has the pulleys. I believe it's called Puppet Master. But there's a bunch of variations of this table maze. But specifically, we see it in Tocantins, where Coach wins South Pacific in a Redemption Island duel with Ozzy and Cochran. Blood versus Water. It's another Redemption Island duel between Vetus, Tina, and Aris, and Vetus and Tina pull out the win. Worlds Apart, Mike Holloway wins it. In Co Wrong, it's a little different, which I think they should bring this back. They put it on the water, and they have to use their body weight to try and navigate the ball into the hole. And then in Game Changers, it was during a tribe challenge. Tavua won it. And then each person had to do a ball. So only once you sunk your ball, you couldn't help anymore. You couldn't go back and try again to sink another ball. And then Winners at War, it was the Sandra boot where Sele won. And I love this table maze. I think they should bring it back and do it many times over. I think it's interesting enough and not as replicable as some of the other mazes can be, like the snake or something like that, where we see people, recreating them in the backyard. It's a maze. You don't know how it's going to be set up every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually had a wooden one of these when I was younger, that had like little pegs on the side that you had to like turn to like tilt the table apart. And I am just like atrociously bad at it. So every single time I see this challenge, I'm like, this would not be something that I'm good at. But it's definitely like a good challenge for like suspense. It's good for TV for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And then we get to Emily winning this reward challenge, and she decides to bring all of the girls. And I just see Outback, that tree mail that they get, where it's like, all right, this camp is going to be ladies' night out, and this camp is going to be men's night out. And they swap the camps, and all the ladies are at one camp, all the men are at one camp. And it's like having a blast and, girl time and guy time. What are your thoughts on like Emily bringing all the girls and then, that Outback moment where it's like slightly different, but.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because I think like, we've seen a lot of times where, especially, this kind of a reward where, it's an overnight or whether it's like a spa or something. If a girl wins, a lot of the times they take all girls. But I think this is like one of the first times that we see it actually completely divides the tribe, where actually all of the women end up going and there's none left back at camp. So I think it just like makes for this hilarious setup of two different scenes moving forward.
Yes, what you would assume as to be like the elegant sanctuary with the women. And then boys camp. We have to start off with all of the farting going on.
Yeah.
Because
how can you not?
Surprisingly, this is a common theme. So we're going to go to Palau when Stephanie's the last woman. She has Bobby, John, and James, and she's just talking about how grody they are, burping, farting, and just like being nasty boys. And she's like, I can't wait to leave here. Did you have a thought?
Oh, yeah, no, it's just weird to think about that we actually have something to relate that back to, basically.
Right. And then I think you were saying when we were talking beforehand that this was giving you Amazon vibes.
Yeah, just in general, the whole split up of men in one camp and then women at the reward, just the whole vibe, Amazon vibes.
Yeah, not really Vanuatu.
No.
definitely Amazon.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have another moment in San Juan del Sur with Missy and Baylor, grossed out by Keith, Wes, and Alec. They're just like not being courteous that there are ladies around, and they're like, this is my home. I toot in my own home. Like, what do you want from me? The fact that we are discussing this as like an actual segment, I think is ridiculous. And then I think the most iconic moment is last season with Danny being like, hey, Jeff, toot.
And then just rips one.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy that we got this. And this segment was just pure gold. We actually got a licensed song in this, which another Survivor first, in a Rewind podcast. And it just flows so beautifully.
Yeah, I remember when that came on, I was like, what is this Top Gun montage? But I am totally here for it. It was just absolutely hilarious.
Mm-hmm. And then we get this confessional from Drew being like, I'm not the dude bro type, but I'm here with the boys. It's boys' night. And I just see, like, everyone egging on Cochran in South Pacific. Come on, Cochran, you're the man. And he's just like, I'm not the man, but I'm gonna like put on a
We're gonna try.
I'm gonna wear this sweater vest without the shirt. Hey. And then, the obvious Christian in the brochachos.
Mm-hmm.
We have, the big beefy boys.
I just love situations like that where like the nerdy guy like comes out of his shell and tries to fit in with the big boys. It's funny. It's
great. And Drew this season hasn't totally portrayed himself as the nerdy boy, that nerdy archetype that, that Cochran or Christian portrays. I see him as like this more powerhouse kind of character, like a David Wright, or where he had a little bit more control in the game and wasn't this like weak nerdy guy, where he was in the beginning, but like now at the end he was like more established.
Yeah, he definitely has like the personality and like the strategic mindset to back up like that kind of a front,
Speaking of David Wright, we are going to be watching season 38, Edge of Extinction, episode 9, Blood of a Blindside, over on the Patreon. So please tune in tomorrow over there, where we will be watching that episode of Edge of Extinction. Woo! Then another amazing scene that we get is Austin going out fishing. Not this Austin on 45. He's going out fishing. And we just like don't see that anymore unless Ozzy is on our screen, basically. And the past seasons, it's kind of been like, for lack of a better term, a pissing match between the guys of like, I caught 8 fish, I caught 12 fish, I caught 15 fish. And now we just have like this wholesome moment of Austin being like, I caught a fish that was bigger than an inch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually like, surprisingly, that was one of my favorite parts of the episode, just because it kind of like reminds you like where Survivor started, It's not too often that you get that kind of content anymore in the newer seasons, because the show has definitely evolved from
survival.
Exactly. Survival being the main purpose, but now it's become so much more about, the game and the strategy. So I just thought it was really cool to see, especially because of the fact that we have this extra airtime now, that, we get to see some of that stuff that really made a lot of us love Survivor in the first place.
Yeah, we don't see Austin saying, I'm catching you fish, you should keep me around.
Yeah.
Which was Hatch's entire like motif during the game, was just keep me, I'm catching you fish.
Yeah.
And then Jake tells Drew that Bruce doesn't have the idol anymore. So like, why? I just don't understand why people would believe Bruce if, when Bruce would say this. Like, it would have happened before the Kendra blindside. Jake is telling Drew this, like, and Drew's like, whoa, this is, crazy information. And Drew is believing it, that the idol has left, because, Jake did Bruce's plan of he's going to leak it to someone that Bruce doesn't have the idol. But why is Drew believing it?
Yeah, I don't know. Just circling back to what I said earlier, I can't believe that people believed it. It doesn't make any sense, knowing that Kelly wanted Bruce out so bad. There's no reason for her to not tell people if she ended up with his idol. Everybody would have known about it.
Yeah, and Jake is now that assuming that Kelly role of I gotta separate from Bruce. We're a pair,
Mhm.
we're a pair, we're a pair. So now we get away from boys' camp and go back to the calm sanctuary, and we get to crying. It's the letters from home, and it's kind of the new era loved ones visit. Since COVID happened, they weren't able to bring people out on the island. I hope they start bringing them out, soon in a couple seasons, but we get these loved one letters, and I like that it was a little bit extended of a scene, that we got time to sit with some people's backstories. We got to hear a little bit more of the letters from everyone.
Yeah, I love the loved ones episodes. Like, I think about, like, if I were on Survivor, that was always something that I would have hoped to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of unfortunate that they don't do it anymore. And I really hope they do eventually bring it back. But, like, even something as simple as letters from home, like, can still be so impactful and give people that extra boost. And I would be more than happy to get that if I were on the show.
Yeah. So I believe the first letters from home that we see, are Christy and Jenna, and they win it in the auction on Amazon. That they are most commonly put in the auction. And I like that they didn't have them in this auction, because then, that is that gamemanship of Mike Holloway in the auction, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to let everybody spend their money so I can get the advantage. So we have just food in this auction instead of the loved ones, where, everyone could get their loved one's letter. But now we have that social decision with Emily that these people are getting love.
Yeah, it also, like, does, relate to, this basically is, like you said, our loved ones episode, because that was always a big strategic decision in the loved ones episode, is whoever wins the reward has to pick people to take them with them. And, Emily, after winning the challenge, knew that the letters were going to be there. So you still had that decision, and it still, like, could cause some, hurt feelings, because there's going to be people left out.
Yeah. I also like when they surprise people with with letters from home, where it's not part of the game of the reward. It just shows up and everyone is happy, and you do the person that chose to take you on the reward gets a little bit of a boost without, that daunting, like, I chose you for love. So it's nice when it just shows up. One of my favorites is Cook Islands, where there's a whole montage of photos of them and their families, and they can put faces to names and stuff like that. So it's nice when it's just like a surprise. So now everyone comes back to camp, but it's before the immunity challenge. Why is Jake just going around the beach and pitching Drew before the immunity challenge? Like, this is something I don't understand. Why would you throw names out if you're not safe or he's on the bottom, but, like, things can turn back around to him when it might not be him. In this case, it's Bruce, but it could have easily swung to Jake, because Drew is like, I'm threatened here because of Jake.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to make, like, too hard of a pitch. It's one thing to, kind of think ahead and try to plant some seeds, but to make a hardcore pitch for Drew before the immunity challenge, when he very well could be safe, knowing you're on the bottom, knowing Bruce is going to likely play his idol if he doesn't win immunity, and that you are likely going to be the backup plan.
Yeah.
And, there's something to be said about, like, swinging for the fences and not wanting to just go out without trying. But I think you got to be a little more calculated than that.
Yeah, like we see in this episode of Edge of Extinction that we'll watch over on the Patreon and get more in depth over there. But people like Ron and Julie, who are a solid pair, not turning on each other, go up to each other before the immunity challenge. We're like, so if Aurora doesn't win, we want to go for Aurora, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like there are options out. And then what happens? Aurora wins, and the plans get shifted. So it just, with talking to people who aren't your solid alliance like that, I feel like it is just a no-go and a big, big blunder on Jake's part here.
Mm-hmm.
The immunity challenge. It made our job very hard here with the Survivor Rewind because this is a pretty brand spanking new challenge. It takes elements of other ones and kind of just smacks them all together. So with the being on that incline kind of reminded us of that Fiji challenge where they're having water drip on their head and they're just holding on to the bar above them and holding on for dear life. But instead of doing that, they have handholds, which is like the footholds in all of those other 10,000 challenges. So, Austin, what were your thoughts on the handholds, bringing back this incline, all that?
Look, it may have made our job a little bit harder to find something to compare it to, but I'm here for a new challenge all day, every day. So I was really excited to see something that we haven't had before. And at first, like when we were first kind of going into the challenge, I was just looking at it, and before Jeff started explaining, I was like, wait, so how does this get harder? Like the incline is the same. Well, what are we going to do here? And then I noticed
it doesn't get narrower. It's the same width.
Yeah. But then obviously you notice the handholds get smaller. Yeah, no, I thought it was a really cool challenge. Mm-hmm. We've gotten a lot of endurance, yes, challenges. So I'm ready for a switch up, but overall happy to have a new challenge.
This was like slightly different than the other endurances because I feel like because you were holding up your body at one point where you could see Bruce and Austin kind of like pushing their bodies up, where in like the foothold challenge, it's painful and that mind over matter. This actually has that like physical ability in it. So I liked it, and want to try it, but it's also not the same thing as the footholds where I think I could just like mind over matter that and like last to the end. Hopefully. I don't know.
Yeah. I also thought like the way that they introduced like what was the final part of the challenge was like you had to extend your legs and couldn't use your feet anymore. Yeah. I thought that was like a nice little touch of something new to like round out a challenge as far as like the final stage.
Yeah. I'm all for just like, so we don't sit there for 3 hours because the tension of that is a lot greater than all of a sudden Bruce wears out.
Yeah.
Like the building of, I'm pushing up, you're pushing up, I'm pushing up. Then, Tom and Ian on that buoy.
Yeah.
Like, all right, you gonna jump? Nope.
Yeah, making a drastic change in the difficulty like at the final stage, I think is a nice touch.
So at camp before the vote, Jake here is getting a lot of screen time for having those blunders, voting for Julie wrong. Nobody's on his side, can't tell if anyone's lying to him. And I feel like it was great to actually see this moment because we don't get that from the people on the bottom as much, or we don't get as in-depth of a storyline. We get it a little bit here with Aurora in the episode we're watching, but it's not as heartwarming and like you feel for the guy than in this episode. And you think we would get something like that from Karishma, who is constantly that backup vote that Jake is feeling. He's that backup vote every time. And we're finally kind of seeing his frustrations.
Yeah, it's really nice to see I can go on and on about all of the things that the 90 minutes have brought us. And this is just another one of them. We just get to know all of the cast a little bit better, and you get to see more of these moments, and you feel more connected to the cast when you get to see them, at their lowest, and you really get to know a lot more of their thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And now Emily pitches to Bruce. This is the Hail Mary saving plan. We're going for Julie. And Bruce is like, yes, the unlikely duo strikes. We can do it. Who would have thought? And that to me is like red flag, red flag.
Yeah, the biggest red flag. You hear someone say that, you turn around and run.
Yeah, that unlikely duos conversation, I feel just is will never work out in anybody's favor. Someone's always lying to the other one. Yep. And in this case, Emily was lying to Bruce.
Yeah, it's what you pitch to someone when you don't know what to pitch to them.
Unlikely duo, let's work together.
Yeah.
Tell me a name. Oh, you don't have one? Oh, but let's circle back.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get down to the biggest part of this episode, and that's Tribal Council, where Bruce leaves with the idol in his pocket. We see it more times than Austin and I thought.
Yeah, I know. When we were looking up all of the times that people have been voted out with idols in their pockets, it blew my mind. I was like, I did not realize that there were this many of them.
Mm-hmm. There's a lovely YouTube compilation out there. Thank you to whoever made that. But I'll say all of them and then we'll highlight a few. So China, James leaves with the 2 idols. Micronesia, we have Ozzy and Jason both leaving with idols. Tocantins, Brendan leaves. Samoa, Eric, Caramoan, Andrea, Cagayan, Garrett, San Juan del Sur, John Mish, and John Rocker. Korong, Scott Pollard, which there's a little asterisk on that one. Game Changers, JT, Ghost Island, Chris Noble, Edge of Extinction, Kelly Wentworth, which we are covering over on the Patreon, and Aubrey. Then Island the Idols has 3. We have Kelly, Vince, and Chelsea. And then Winners at War, Sophie leaves with the idol. So this batch of people, I just, again, was shocked. But obviously the first one we're going to highlight is James. I mean, James leaving with 2 idols is one of the most iconic moments in Survivor.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think of people leaving with an idol in their pocket, James is definitely the person that most people go to immediately. Yeah. Let's hope we don't get a repeat of that with Austin.
Yes. Oh my God.
Surely that doesn't happen, considering there's only a few episodes left. So
all right, that'll be clipped for the TikTok when that happens. And then we have Caramoan with Andrea. I mean, I feel like that is also another big, like, whoa, left with an idol moment, because her idol comes back in Ghost Island.
Yeah, for sure.
And one that I stupidly forgot about is Garrett Adelstein in Cagayan. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful of a moment. It's pre-merge, and he leaves it at camp and is just like, yeah, I'm good, and then gets voted out.
Yeah. It's like, how do you forget it? But it's also like, it was first boot. So like, it makes sense that you forget it.
Yeah. And then, so the Korong idol, Scott, the twist with this idol is if you put 2 idols together, it could create a super idol and be played after the votes were read. He trusted Ty to play the idol so that they could be safe and know where to play this super idol, whether it be on Scott or on Jason. But Ty is like, nah, I'm not playing it for you. And Scott just leaves with that idol in his pocket. And because Scott had been actually voted out, he couldn't just pass the idol off. The idol was now dead.
Yeah, that is arguably probably one of my favorite like Survivor moments, specifically like tribal council and a vote out is just there's so much suspense, and then Ty just being like, nope, I'm not doing it. So good.
One of the only ones on this list that is not a blindside. Like, we were going through these and we're like, which one is not a blindside? And pretty much all of these completely blindsided, because as you should do to someone with an idol that you want to get out.
No, I was trying to think, I was like, are there any people that were voted out with an idol that like knew they were a target but chose not to play it?
Yeah.
And we look back at this list and it's just, it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened before.
Yeah, exactly. We also have JT here, who kind of knows he's toward the bottom because of the Malcolm boot. And we get this beautiful moment at Tribal Council. Michaela starts taking out her tea, her cup, starts sipping it, and is just like, all right, go tell Malcolm you sent him home. And I'm just like, this woman.
Also, one of my favorite Tribal Council moments.
Anytime Michaela's bringing out the popcorn or the tea, she's just gold.
Don't mind me.
Yep, exactly. And then how could we forget Chris Noble? Because he goes to Ghost Island and, plays the game to up his idol and then leaves with it. I just
talk about taking the risk and
no reward. Absolutely no reward. And then we will talk about the Kelly Wentworth blindside here, mainly because 1, she goes home with an idol, but 2, the blindside is stupid. Because War Dog here is taking out one of his allies for him to just go next. So I wonder what's going to happen in this next episode to Katurah, to Jake, to Emily, where Bruce could have been that ally to change the tides of the game, and he goes home.
I think the big difference between those two is the fact that, like, Kelly and Lauren would have still continued to work with War Dog had he kept Kelly. Whereas, like, the difference here is Bruce and Katurah had never been on the same page.
Yeah.
So, like, Bruce was just never really a number for Katurah. So I think in her head, getting rid of him is the best option for her game, regardless of, where she stands after the fact. She gets herself one day farther.
Yeah. The last one is Winners at War. And it's just hilarious because Sophie doesn't know how to get voted out. The second time she's played, some other winners have come back to play again and had their torches snuffed. But Sophie's like, I don't know how to do this. Oh, yeah. And idol, like, what is going on here? And it just, like, these people give beautiful blindside moments. So everyone, remember, watch season 38, Edge of Extinction, episode 9, Blood of a Blindside. It's the David Wright boot and the Kelly Wentworth boot. 2 for 1 here. And before we go, I do want to plug, over at Dynamic Character Productions, we are casting for our next mini. It is a 1-day game, and that I got Austin to play our last game because he podcasted with me, and he was a specialist patron. So, you, dear specialist viewers, I would love to see your application come through. There is a link in the description, so please click it, apply. It'll be a great time. Austin, tell them how great of a time it is.
It is an absolute blast. I did not know what orgs were until I saw McKenna post the application in the specialist Facebook page. And as a Survivor fan, I was like, you always wonder how you would do on Survivor. And I've applied a few times to actual Survivor. I've never heard anything, but I was like, you know what? It's one day, let's just go online, play Survivor, see how it is. And I had so much fun. Meet so many awesome people who all love Survivor, and you get to compete in a bunch of fun challenges, vote people out. It's a blast.
Yes.
Definitely go apply.
We've had many a specialist patron join us over and play one of our games. So please sign up, apply, and you could be the next sole survivor over on Dynamic Character Productions. But let's get into the rest of the specialist week we got. We have Phil's after show is currently up on the Patreon, so go listen to that. Tomorrow, our episode covering Edge of Extinction will be up over there. We have the predictions and power rankings Monday at 6 with Brett LaBelle. Should be a hilarious show. He is always fun to have on the podcast. And then Alexa, John, and myself will be on the recap next week. So you're going to get a lot of John and I this week, because we will be back again next Thursday. Yes, Austin, sorry. I have to bring John back on. But John and I will be joined by a very special guest. So tune in next Thursday, and we'll see you next week. Alrighty. Goodbye, everyone.